Today is the 23rd day of the month of Teves. We are in the middle of chapter 45, discussing a Zimun, when you have three men or more who eat a meal together and then are benching together. How do they do that? We'll be going from paragraph 17 to the end of the chapter, paragraph 23, and we're going to begin chapter 46, doing the first three paragraphs of chapter 46. Chapter 46 discusses the laws of forbidden foods, so all sorts of kosher laws going on in chapter 46. So chapter 45, paragraph 17. We already discussed this yesterday's episode a little bit, that if you have three people who are eating together, then one person is not allowed to leave because that will mess up the Zimun. However, what he could do is everyone pauses, he leads the Zimun, the other two people answer, they listen until he finishes the first blessing of Birkat Hamazon, of benching, and then they continue eating, and then they don't make another Zimun later on. Even if you have four people doing this, the remaining three don't make another Zimun later on because they already got their Zimun in with this person. Now let's say you have 10 people that are eating together, and there are 6 people that want to finish early, they want to be on their way. So the other 4 could do the same thing. One of the 6 could lead the Zimun. They say that word Elokeinu when they're beginning the Zimun, like we mentioned yesterday. And the other 4 answer, and then when he finishes this situation, because the other 4 are just answering to be able to say the word Elokeinu, once the word Elokeinu is said, they continue the meal. They don't have to wait until the first paragraph is said in this case. And not only that, if they keep eating it later after that first Zimun was done, they can make another Zimun between the 4 of them, because there are 3 or more, they can make another Zimun later on between the 4 of them when they finish eating. Paragraph 18. If you have people eating at a bunch of different tables in one large room, then whoever's leading the Zimun should make sure they have a very loud voice. You should choose someone who has a very loud voice so that all the tables will hear them. If they're so spread out that he would not be heard by all the different tables, then you should break into smaller groups of 10 in order that whoever's leading the Zimun will be heard. Paragraph 19. Now what's considered eating together? Let's say you have some people in one room and some people in another room. So the rule is, as long as each group has 3 people, so they each do consist of their own Zimun, then if they see the other person, if some of this group could see through the doorway to some of the other group, they could all join together in a one big Zimun. Now, sometimes they might have 2 different groups in 2 different rooms, and they can't see each other, but they share the same waiter. So as long as those 2 groups intended on eating the same together at the same time as one group, then since they share a waiter, even though they can't see each other, they still could join one big Zimun, again, as long as they could hear each other. Because like we saw in the last paragraph, you can't hear each other, you can't join the Zimun. So whoever's leading the Zimun has to do loud enough to be able to hear, so that people in the next room could also hear it. Paragraph 20. Let's say there's a group having a Zimun and somebody else is there that didn't eat anything. So the person who's leading the Zimun says, Rabosai Nevreich, gentlemen, let's bless God, let's say thank you for the meal that we ate. This person didn't eat a meal, so what does he respond? He can't respond, all right, let's bless God like everybody else responds. So what does he do? If he stays silent, it's kind of like he's excluding himself. He's this other fellow saying, let's bless God, and he's up, I'm just keeping silent as if he doesn't want to bless God. So there is a formula to say, what he says is Baruch Umvarach Shemo Tamid L'Olam Ed, that God's name is blessed is he, and blessed is his name continuously forever and ever. The problem is they don't find this line in most benchers or prayer books. So to remember it when you only use it rarely is not a very easy thing to do. So I recommend if you're ever in that scenario and you see they're eating, they're going to make a Zimun, and I didn't eat anything, just have something a little small to eat or drink. Remember, it could just be some juice or some drink, anything other than water, a nut or a fruit, whatever it is over there, and then you could answer regularly like everybody else in the Zimun. Paragraph 21. Let's say people are eating different types of food. Kosher food, like different types of food in regards to kosher. For example, you have somebody who's eating dairy and someone's eating meat. You can't mix those two. So could they join together for a Zimun? Could we call them eating together if they're eating foods that they can't share with each other? So the answer is yes. Even though I'm eating food that you might not be able to eat, and you might be eating food that I can't eat, still there are foods we're able to share together. All of us could share the same loaf of bread. That's doable. And therefore we can all join in a Zimun together, even though we're eating different types of foods. Paragraph 22. Let's say you have men and women together. So you don't have one man and 2 men join, or vice versa, 2 men, 1 woman join together to make a Zimun. But if you have 3 men there and they form a Zimun, then any ladies that are eating there also, just like a man can't leave their Zimun, he can't bench by himself, so too, if there's Zimun there, the woman can't leave until the Zimun is done. Once there's Zimun happening, she's obligated to be part of that Zimun to answer like everybody else. What age do the men have to be in order to be part of the Zimun? So like most other mitzvahs, 13 years old. A boy who's under 13 cannot be part of the three, however, and would not, and if there's two and him, he wouldn't be able to do Zimun. But once he turns 13, not only could he be part of the Zimun, he even could lead the Zimun. If I recall correctly, Sephardim, they'll count the boy from the time that he's 9 years old or older. But if you are Sephardi, you want to do that, check with your local Orthodox Sephardi rabbi just to confirm that. Paragraph 23. Just like all other mitzvahs, a ger, a convert, is able to join in a Zimun. And not only that, the Kitzur Chanarach takes the opportunity to mention something else very interesting. Then the second paragraph of benching, we thank God for the land of Israel. There's a paragraph that starts with Nodalecha. And we say, thank God to give the land to Israel, as to our forefathers as a heritage. Al Shnechat Lavosenu. So says the Kitzur Chanarach, you might think that a convert, a ger, might not be able to see that line because it wasn't given to his biological forefathers. Maybe to his spiritual forefathers, but definitely not his biological forefathers because he just converted in this year. So he says, nope, even a convert is able to see that line because Avram is considered the father of many nations, not just of the Jews. And therefore, even a convert is able to see that line. Chapter 46. Chapter 46, by way of introduction, has 46 paragraphs. It covers a lot of rules about kosher from different things that we have to be worried about. Blood, to meat and milk, different types of utensils, things that look like milk but aren't milk, insects or foods that might be infested with insects or different types of bugs, all sorts of random interesting rules about kosher. So paragraph 1. We already saw earlier, a few chapters back, that when with meat, after it's slaughtered, in order for it to be considered kosher, it has to undergo a salting process. There's a number of other rules about blood that we have to be aware of. So here's the first one. We have to make sure that if we're cooking eggs, that before just for frying eggs at least, or using eggs in baking, we have to first check the eggs for a blood spot. So this is why you'll see people, there's two ways of doing it. You either crack the egg open, put it into a glass, then you check all parts of the yolk to make sure there's no blood spot there. Or you could crack it open over the glass and you could shake it. If you crack the shell open, we have now two little cups, the two little halves of the shell, and you pour the yolk back and forth from one shell to the next, checking all sides of the yolk to make sure there's no blood spots there. Now, this could be really two problems, the blood spots. The first problem is that if the egg was fertilized, then there's a concern that the egg started developing, and now it's not a kosher egg. The whole egg is not kosher, because once it starts developing, then it leaves the status of being an egg, and it becomes the status of a fetus of a chicken, even if it's very small. So that makes the whole egg not kosher. Nowadays, this isn't such a problem, because our eggs are produced in plants where they don't have a chance to be fertilized. But if you see a blood spot on the egg, it's not because it's the beginning of a fertilized egg, but it could be because there was some sort of trauma. The chicken got banged up in the process of forming the egg, and so some sort of bruise that's inside there, and that's where that blood spot is from. In that case, the blood spot isn't kosher, but the rest of the egg is kosher. So really, you can just take out that blood spot, and the rest of the egg will be fine. However, the general custom is even in that scenario, you just throw out the whole egg, you don't use that egg. Practically, something to be aware of is that if you buy free-range chickens, then even though the eggs aren't being fertilized, the amount of blood spots you're going to find is going to be tremendous. You buy regular white eggs, it's pretty uncommon to find a blood spot. But with free-range of brown eggs, it's extremely common. I don't know for sure if this is the reason. My understanding, at least, is because those chicken, the free-range, they're running around, much more likely to get banged up, much more likely to develop some sort of bruise as the eggs are being formed. And you could literally, if you with a carton of free-range chicken eggs, you could find 10 out of 12 will have blood spots. So in a kosher kitchen, I highly recommend not purchasing free-range chicken eggs. Now let's say you're baking cake and you forget to check your eggs for blood spots. So in that case, because blood spots are not so common, at least if you're using white eggs, you could assume that everything's fine in there. Nowadays, even with brown eggs, because the whole egg is kosher, just that one blood spot is not kosher, we could assume that blood spot is nullified, and your cake is going to be kosher. If you fried eggs, we'll assume that the fried eggs are kosher. It's not a problem. But you should make sure, really, you're not supposed to rely on this. You're really supposed to check it. If you forgot to check it, we're going to say it's kosher. But if you intentionally did it, then it could be a problem. Paragraph 2. We only have to worry about blood in mammals or in poultry and birds. Blood of fish, however, is kosher. It does not constitute a kosher problem. Therefore, you don't have to worry about salting fish to get the blood out of it. However, let's say somebody gathers fish blood in a cup. Then even though there's no problem even of drinking that blood because it's from a fish, The issue is that people seeing that might think you're drinking animal blood or blood from birds. And this creates a problem called maris ayin. People will they'll learn the wrong lesson from it. They might either think you're doing something wrong, and that's a problem because you're not even allowed to give the appearance of doing something inappropriate, or their takeaway might be, oh, I never knew blood was kosher. Okay, I don't have to worry about eating blood anymore because I see that, so-and-so over there who I trust in kosher rules, he knows about kosher, he's eating blood, therefore I guess blood is fine. So again, that's called maris ayin. And because of that, if somebody's drinking a cup, if you're drinking collected fish blood, because it looks the same as blood from an animal or from a bird, you have to make sure there's some scales hanging around either in the cup or right near the cup, in order that anybody seeing that will say, oh, that must be from fish because I see scales over there. Again, this sounds pretty disgusting for us in our generation, but halachically it's not a problem as long as you have scales over there in the blood. Paragraph 3. What about human blood? Now, I don't think anybody listening to this is a vampire, but let's say you get a cut in your mouth and your mouth is bleeding. So do we have to be worried about eating that blood? Do we have to rinse out our mouth before we eat anything or drink anything and make sure that the cut is healed enough that we could eat? So the rule is that as long as it doesn't leave my mouth, so if I get a cut in my mouth, then I don't have to worry about swallowing any blood in there because it's still inside my mouth. However, once the blood leaves my mouth or leaves my body, then it becomes a problem. So for example, if I get a cut in my finger, then I can't suck on the finger, suck where the cut is, because now that blood was leaving my body and then coming into my mouth. Also, let's say I take a bite of an apple and I pull that away from my mouth, see, oh, there's some blood on the apple. If my lips are bleeding a little bit maybe, or let's say I have a cut in my mouth, then you can't take a bite from that piece of the apple and we have to just cut off that blood or wash off the blood before taking the next bite of the apple. This concludes today's episode. Have a wonderful day and see you tomorrow.